the structure of paragraphs and the literature review. And we are going to start, and I want to help you with the writing process, because English is our second language, and we are also not used to do scientific writing. I hope this exercise and everything that I'm lecturing you will assist you in doing your other assignments better and improve on what you have done currently in your assignments. So the first sentence actually explains it very clearly and say writing is not something that happens magically, or it simply flows out of a person when he or she puts a pen to paper. Do you have the same feeling? Or if you put your fingers on the keyboard, it just doesn't flow. Although many people think writing is just flowing out of one. At the end of the day, it is hard work, and it involves a sequence of steps and separate activities that results in your final product. So I'm going to go through the steps and the sequence, and then at the end how to combine it and do a proper literature review or an essay or an assignment. All of these actually means the same thing. And what we are doing today, most of it is just good writing. And that will help you also when you are in a workplace to write reports and so on for your manager in a better way. All right. I'm going to start with a paragraph because I certainly hope that all of you can write a sentence. So I didn't start with the sentence. A paragraph is a sequence of related sentences that carry and develop a single or a core idea. So we have one idea in one paragraph. We tend sometimes to stick too many things and too many ideas in a paragraph. The main idea is that it must be simplistic, but most often it should be the key sentence. So the first sentence or the main idea should be your key in your paragraph. A paragraph is a cohesive unit. If all the sentences that support the main idea or key sentence and the paragraph is coherent and all the sentences are linked to the preceding and the following sentence. So it means the sentence before, sentence after should be linked. I'm going to show you some ideas on how to link the different sentences. So, in order to link our sentences, we have bridging sentences, and we then bridge the different paragraphs. In order to follow the main points of your argumentation, because you build an argument in a paragraph, it is important to have bridging sentences which link the text backward and forward and bridging the gaps or the paragraphs in your assignment. A number of constructions are commonly used to alert the reader to the relationship between the sentences and paragraphs that follow on the previous one. Interesting, please note, I found this from Maton, 2001 on page 126, just to show you that I'm also using in-text referencing. Okay. We have 4 main groups of linking devices that can link previous 2 sentences together. We have the first one, which is called elaboration. In other words, this means that if you use this linking words, it is more about elaborating on the issue that you've already explained previously. So it says here, after making a point, you can elaborate and draw out the implication of what has been said in order to make it more understandable. So examples of this is, more specifically, Or you can use another way and say, this implies that, or this also implies that, blah, 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 and you go on with your sentence. Then we have another group of linking devices which reaffirm your statement. It means if you want to repeat an argument or a point made, you can do it in slightly different terms. You can use devices such as stated differently, in other words, or in short. Okay, so you might have a long explanation and just say, in short, it means this and this. All right. You can also have conclusion linking devices. So after you have a lengthy set of arguments or a long paragraph or presenting evidence for a particular point of view, you can indicate that a conclusion will follow by linking constructions. You can use devices like, and I think these ones you know, therefore, hence, thus, it follows that, then, and consequently. Then there is the last group with contrast. It shows the difference between the sentence or the previous sentence and the thing that you want to follow to say. Having argued in favor of a particular point, so you say you agree with this point, it is also good practice to present opposing or contrasting views. So there you use devices like however. So be careful when you use however, and I know students use however a lot. Can you see, you have to argue a point in favor of the view, and then in the second sentence or in the next sentence you say however. So that means you cannot start a paragraph with however. You cannot start a new paragraph with the word however. Okay, right. Now students however, and students according to and according to, and that is problematic when you read it because you actually have to make a positive statement. However, shows the contrast to the statement or a negative to the statement that you've made, and that is the only way when you use the word however. I've got a rule. You are allowed to use however once per page of your assignment. Only once. Because students do however, and or according to. There's another linking device. So what I would suggest is when you start reading your articles and you find some of these interesting words, write them down and start building your own list of linking device words. When I started with my PhD, I thought, listen, the second language is not going to hamper me in doing a good study. So I started then making a list for me of all the different linking words and so on. Because sometimes when you start writing, you forget that there's some other words. You don't always have to use however. You can use on the same page however, and in the next paragraph rather use than on the other hand. Or you can say conversely, or you can say in contrast. Okay, so there are already 4 ones that you can use. So please, while you are reading, be on the lookout for things that you can use as linking devices. There are also more examples of conclusions like therefore, hence, thus, and so on. And I'm not going to mention all of them, and the list is not a full list. You can, as you read, create your own list and so on. All happy with linking devices and what I mean by linking devices. Okay. Let us go on then to the next slide. When we are writing, apart from having things that links our different sentences together, there are 3 elements in a paragraph. So whenever you are writing, you must have 3 things in one paragraph. And what I'm doing when I'm marking your work, my job is to mark your work and checking for, do you have 3 sentences in a paragraph, or did you use the 3 things? A paragraph at minimum must have 3 sentences. Minimum. So you can use more than 3 sentences. Why do I say so? We start with a lead-in or a main sentence that makes the topic of that paragraph explicit. In other words, start with this sentence, the main idea or the lead-in, like an introductory sentence that you have. It's the same as your assignments. Remember at school you learn that you have an introduction, your core, and your conclusion. Each paragraph just works the same way. You have an introductory or a lead-in sentence, then you have a core sentence, or 5 or 10 core sentences, and then you have 1 or 2 conclusion sentences. Does that make sense to you how a paragraph is working? I was thinking when I did my master's degree and I started learning this for myself, I thought, gee whiz, I wish somebody could have taught me this, because I somewhere missed it at school, that you have to have the 3 sentences to write a proper paragraph. Okay, so let's move on. Apart from our leading sentence, we then have the core sentence or sentences in which we elaborate on the main topic or the point made in the first key sentence. This implies that the next sentence elaborates on the main idea. Then when you finish with your idea, we have a concluding sentence that summarizes the argument of the paragraph. More specifically, you must bring the paragraph to a logic close with a summary sentence. So you see there you can say however, or in contrast, and so forth. It is even better if this sentence not only summarizes the points in the paragraph, but also look ahead into your next paragraph. Okay, so you can close off with, in one sentence, with the idea of the paragraph, and then leading it into the idea of your next paragraph. What we will do later on today, I will show you examples of good and bad paragraphs and so forth. Right. Then, in short, and we have discussed this a little bit in the layout of the table of content. So here we look at the logic of section headings. If you need to write a 6-page or a 10-page assignment, you need to start thinking before you're reading, what is the main topics or the headings that you want to use in your paragraph. So you need to know what this is all about. So think of your topic on food waste. You are going to write a literature review on food waste, or an essay, or an assignment on food waste. So you must start thinking, what will your different headings be? Logically, I would, after you start with your introduction, maybe define what is food waste, and then start talking about your benefits and your disadvantages, the functions of it, the cost of it. You see, so you need to start making up an idea. So I'm doing this also now, that while you are reading your articles, look at how those people have written the articles, because that will help you to obtain this. Now, Meton, and here I use another example. According to Meton, 2001, on page 127, the heading of an assignment should mirror the logic of your argument. What do you want to argue? So your headings must tell your argument. Okay. Since a section heading embodies the core idea or the topic of that sentence, it is reasonable to expect that a well-designed and organized assignment will have logical section headings. So the one will flow out of the other, all right? And so it continues. Now, even in all your other assignments, think of it when you start writing, that one thing must logically flow into the next thing. So if you talk about the benefits, then you can say in your concluding sentences, the benefit of, there's no benefit of food waste is that it can be used as land in the ground to produce compost, but there are more disadvantages for food waste. And then you just start with your new paragraph, and then you start with your disadvantages. Can you see how you link it? Okay. Now, good test for this is to take the contents of your assignment and inspect the headings on their own. If you have a table of contents, you must read a table of contents, and that must make sense to you. It must tell you a story when you are reading a table of content. The one thing needs to flow into the other. So that will, I hope that will help you to decide on how to start building a assignment, and that one thing flows from the other. Yeah, I should actually, maybe I should have shown you this on the document. Can I use the document camera, please? Because I think it will just help to make my point. I'm sorry. Okay. Let us quickly look at this example in the textbook. We ask the question, what is research? And then it gives an overview or kind of like a definition. What is research or what is research not? Can you remember last week's lecture that I gave? No. And then they include here the objectives but we don't use the objectives of the paragraph in our assignment, so ignore that one for now. But then I ask the question, how does research matter to you? And how does research matter to all of us? Can you see? It's first about you, then the rest of the population, then we define research. Now, after we define research, we say research consists of a certain steps. We break that steps or process of research down, and I say that the research process consists firstly of identifying and analyzing the question. We need to conduct a literature review, formulate a research question, then decide on an approach that we are going to use, write a proposal, pre-testing of our data collection methods, analyzing and writing your research report. Can you see that start making a story? And it flow logically from one to the other. Let us look, for instance, in the chapter about sampling. Again, the overview is kind of a background or an introduction. Then sampling, we start with the population. From the population, we draw a sample. And sampling consists of two main things, probability sampling and non-probability sampling. What the next paragraph is telling us that our sampling methods, then they list for us a few probability and a few non-probability sampling methods. And then they explain to us what is important to consider. And then we don't have a conclusion in this case. In this case, we have a summary. Because we can just have one conclusion. A textbook have a conclusion way at the end. We don't have conclusions at the end of each chapter. We normally have a summary at each of the end chapters. But can you see, as I talk through the table of contents, have you ever read the table of contents? I think it's crazy, no? Yeah. But go and look at the table of content. A table of content is really there to make sense and to give structure. So if you have what you need to write down and have the story of your topic, then you will be able to write a really good assignment. But the trick is, how do you know what topics needs to be in there? And that is why I said that is why I did yesterday first the exercise with you to download your articles and have your articles ready, because from your articles you read about the literature, it gives you an idea of what topics you can get into before you start writing. So before you start writing, you must know what your topic is all about. If you don't know what your topic and you haven't read about it, then you will not be able to come up with a list like that. And only then you can start writing your assignments. Have you ever done an assignment like that? You grab one book and you start typing. Then you grab another book and you start typing. And so you go on. So don't do it. If you have read your work, understand your topic, then it will help you to come up with logic section headings. So here I say a good test for this is to take the contents of the assignment and inspect the headings on their own, as I've shown you now. You should be able to recognize that the main themes and arguments of the assignment, like each of the chapters I show you. This should give you then a good idea of what you can expect when you read this assignment. Okay. I have done this previously, but again it's the same thing, that we number all our headings. Since each section and subsection should explore one and only one main idea or theme, it does not make sense to have one subsection heading. Example, you can have a 1.1 and then you can divide 1.1.1. This is 1.1. It's called a dangly subsection. It means that it doesn't have a friend. It doesn't have a 1.1.2. If you don't have a 1.1.2, this whole argument can be written under 1.1. Okay. And I think I've explained that last time for you as well. So remember it when you do your other assignments for your lecturers. Since there is no 1.12, it does not make sense to divide the main section 1.1 and the heading should just be deleted. This is only when a second related theme, which is introduced under section 1.1, is presented, that it makes sense to move to a 1.1.1 and then also to a 1.1.2. Okay, so I hope this is clear enough for you, why we cannot do that. Then the amount of levels. In our work, we never go more than 4 levels. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you see? No, we don't put another one there for number 5. It's just getting too long. And why you break it then down too small, just for 4 sections. And I said also here, it's unlikely that in a 10-page assignment you will need to have more than 2 or at least 3 levels of subsections. All right. Good writing consists of some subsections. Not necessarily each section, but if 1.1 doesn't have a subsection, it's all fine to have 1.2 as a subsection or 1.3. Right. Okay. Then we are going to look at general rules for scientific writing. There are 12 rules, and I will explain them over the next 3 slides. Rule number 1 is that one should write clearly, simply, and to the point. This means short sentences. You must go and look how you have written your previous assignments. All of you just start writing and going on and on and on and on and on and on. My job is to mark 2 long sentences. I just scratch out and say 2 long sentences, rephrase. Then you have to break it up into 2 or 3 sentences. My rule is, if you type an assignment, maximum of 2 lines you are allowed. So if you type line 1 is full, line 2 is full, stop. Sentence too long. Rethink your sentence and what you want to say. All right, because you doesn't make a logic argument, and you doesn't tell a person in a logical matter what you need to do. Because if a sentence is too long, by the time you get into the third line, I've lost what you've said in the beginning of the same sentence. Okay, please breathe, no? Stop and take a breath of fresh air and then continue. All right. Do not use words or phrases that are redundant. If you said something, you've said it most. Don't repeat and repeat. You are not politicians, okay? The politicians are talking and then you're listening, and then at the end of the day you say, what on earth did they say? I don't understand a word what they said. It's because they just talk on and on and on and on and on. Try to be fancy. So keep your sentences short. Do not repeat yourself. And in general, keep the sentences short and simple. Again, it's so important. Then rule number 2, use positive constructions. Think things through from a positive way. Negative sentences are invariably more difficult to understand. I have not yet done my homework. What did I just say to you? I have not yet not done my homework. It's confusing somebody. Don't put in too many nots and too many negatives. Don't focus on the negative ideas. And then rule number 3, avoid passive construction. In other words, avoid phrases like it was found that, or the design that was decided upon. Don't use those kind of sentences. So it's good to keep these words. What I did is, when I was a student, print out some of these rules, stuck it to my wall, and then while I'm busy doing my work, I can look up and say, oh yeah, I mustn't use this, or so on. Or read through your assignments before you submit it, so that you can see, or just double check that you have not used all these kinds of words. Right, let's go to the next 3 rules. Do not use an indefinite this. Sometimes the use of this can confuse more than it clarifies. Sometimes the reader are not sure to what this refers. If you mention 2 things in the previous sentence and you say, this is now, then which one of the 2 things is it now? I don't know. And I'm reading your work, so I want to know exactly what you refer to. So be careful of this. Then rule number 5, avoid sexist and derogatory language. Use he/she, or he or she, or he, she. This is quite a nice one, the she one, because then you are also not gender biased, especially when your research work is marked. One of the assessment criteria of research is that you should not be sexist. So you must give recognition to both sexes. And if you look also at the Constitution of South Africa, we are not allowed to discriminate based on sex. So this, I hope, will help you. Avoid language that may be construed as derogatory to any group or any individual, as it may consider abusive. Then number 6, avoid colloquial or spoken language. Don't write as you talk. Avoid words such as get, like, and or rather use or rather use obtain, gain, acquire, and find. So here are a few words that you can also stick to your wall that you can use. In other words, I get it. No, you can say I found it, or I obtained it, or I gained something. Important tip here I want to give is that use the thesaurus in Microsoft Word, because that will assist you. Don't use merely just synonyms for words, okay? Because a synonym doesn't necessarily means exactly the same thing as the original intention, although it's a synonym, okay? Because in the contents of the sentence that you are writing, that word the synonym is just not going to work. All right. So be careful of that. Next, rules. Structure and organize your argument. Think about the argument and ensure that the sequence and logic are clear and sensible. Then also rule 8, assess alternative perspectives and rival points of view. It is important to take alternative points of view into consideration. If you just take the positive, or if you're just going to write about the negative of food plate waste, then you have not covered the whole spectrum. What is the positive about it? For every negative, there's always a positive. So as researchers, we are not allowed to be biased and just look from the one side. We need to look from all the sides. Otherwise, we don't really tell the truth, because then I'm just talking about how I see it and not about how the general public might see it. All right? So think of it. This means you have to consider explicitly and even accommodate those arguments that may reasonably be against your viewpoint. Okay, so it might be totally against your viewpoint. And maybe, there are many examples. I might say that females are better housekeepers than males. And that might be my true belief, but I'm not allowed to write that. I must state the viewpoint of the female side as well as the male side. Although I might think personally that females are better than males. Then this has additional value in making you appear reasonable and open-minded. And in research, we need to be open-minded. If I'm just talking about my viewpoint, I'm biased at the end of the day. You need to consider all possible viewpoints. Then rule number 9, think through the sort of evidence that would be convincing to a competent reader. Evidence include both factual evidence as well as your judgment about such facts. You may substantiate the basis for your position. To say, in my opinion, are not allowed. Okay, I'm very sorry. In research, a researcher does not have an opinion except for in your conclusions and your recommendations. Furthermore, none of your opinions. You take, and that is why we do literature review, read the literature. We take different people's opinions, put them together, but we can voice our opinion without saying it is just my opinion. Okay, it is not good writing style to say it's just my opinion. Okay, it is just my opinion is inadequate and not convincing. Okay, right. Last 3 rules. I've explained to you the linking devices. An argument, specifically in scientific documents, usually involves citing various kinds of evidence from the literature and showing how all of this adds up to the conclusion you have reached. I will show you a paragraph later on, and we can then look at the use of linking devices in there. Rule number 11 is very important, so I want to stand in front of you. This year I'm just going to say rule number 11, rule 11, or I'm just going to write 11 for you. Then it means you haven't edit and rework your writing. All writing, and this is particularly true of academic writing, requires numerous drafts, continuous checking and editing until you and your lecturer are satisfied with your end product. So in the past, when we did the subject in the BTech 1 year, students asked me, but why do I have assignment 1 and a redo on assignment 1? Then we use assignment 1 and we put assignment 1 as part of assignment 3. Then I reread it again. you get it back, you read it. And in the final assignment, we use the same thing. And if you leave the mistakes and you ignore me the first time, you will just get the same comments over and over. And by that time, I'm fed up, and then my bag with marks, that also get very locked up and close and behind my back, because I've told you must to do so. So please, it's very important when you are writing, go and read what you have written. One of the best things that I found out is to read a sentence out loud. So read it to your dog or the parrot or your little sister or brother or whoever, or just read it out for the walls. Because when you read it, you see it and you hear it. And we are used to hear English more than we are writing it. And if you hear it, and you listen to it, you might discover that you have put your sentences wrongly, or you missed a word, you just mistype it, you think you did put it in there, but you haven't at the end of the day. When your lecturer is reading it, they say, what? They just underline it. It means if it's underlined, you need to go and rephrase this, because we don't understand what you try to tell us. If you read it and you can understand your own writing, then most probably we will also understand your reading. So that is why editing of your work is very, very important. And then the last one is you have to check your grammar and your spelling. Today it's actually very easy, because we have the spell checker and the language checker already for us on Word. So the red underline, go and really make sure. Don't get a blind eye for that red, nah? I know, we all tend to get a blind eye. And did you see the green one? The green one doesn't mean it's right, nah? The green one means there's a language error, nah? Not only a space error, it can also be a language error in the sentence. Okay, there's also some blue ones, nah? So check them out and go and look, right-click. The computers are today so clever, they assist us in our language and so on. So, yeah, and then you will get good in writing, and so far, so good. So, in conclusion, writing in English, specifically scientific English, doesn't come naturally. Use your spelling and grammar checkers, and also be aware that spell and grammar checkers is not foolproof. The worst thing that happened to me was I went to a conference and we use nutrition intervention trials. And the word trial and trial, just the I and the A swap around. And there I was standing with intervention trial in places instead of an intervention trial. And then somebody come up to me and say, hey, your poster is wrong. Language error. Wow, that's not nice. Okay, so the computer doesn't pick up the difference in the word, because both ways of spelling are correct, but the computer doesn't know what you want to say. So be careful for words like that. Okay, so I've concluded now here, but I'm not finished. So actually this shouldn't be the conclusion. It's conclusion on paragraphs. Now we go over to how to write a literature review. Here is some tips. You have to write a literature review. So the literature of a literature review refers to any collection of materials on a particular topic. So it could be from textbook, it could be from journal articles, websites, etc. We have done them. So you all know what literature is, and you've been to the library as well. So what is a literature review? A literature review discusses published information in a particular subject area. Ours would be food waste, and sometimes information in a particular subject area within a certain time period. So it can also be linked for the past 5 years or 10 years. A literature review is not simply a summary of sources, but it has an organizational pattern that combines both a summary and a synthesis. Summary? Can you all summarize things? That's easy. Have you ever tried synthesis? Do you know what synthesis? Okay, hang on tight. We will do synthesis. I'm going to show you an excellent example now of a summary, and I'm going to show you some example of synthesis. A summary is a recap of the important information of a source or an article. A synthesis is a reorganization or a reshuffling of your information. Okay, example is coming up. A literature review may evaluate the sources and advise the reader on the most pertinent or relevant issues. So, a literature review can also have an argument, or another word for argument is it makes a certain claim. Okay, you argue something or you have a certain claim that you want to make. Right. So, what is the difference then between just merely summarizing things and synthesizing things? Now, I have two examples here. The same sources is used for both these literature synthesis. A bad one, this is not a literature synthesis, this is merely a summary. Now I'm going to take up your time, but I'm going to read this because it's very important that you understand this. The story here is not important, but the way it's written. So look out for how it's written. And I think most of you is using this method when you are doing your assignments. We say, Durham, and I'm not going to read the in brackets, you can just take note of it. Durham had shown that the Vaal River is relatively pure and it was fit for human consumption. There were no harmful metals or microorganisms in the water. Phew. I hope you see the date. That was in 1962. I'm not sure whether this is currently the case or it's not currently the case. Currently it's bad. So, but we're not into what is happening now. We just look at how it was when this piece was written. Rice and Cooper measured the levels of lead and mercury in the Vaal River water. They found that the levels of these metals exceed the minimum acceptable levels and thus caution the use of water for drinking. In the late 70s, Weston found a new method of removing toxic substances from the water, making it not fit for drink. Weston states that while this new method would be effective, it is a costly process which could be of an economic disadvantage. Can you see in this same thing they state the positive and the negative of it? So we have two arguments here, while my eye is just catching that. Hansa demonstrates that the level of a number of metals in the Vaal River had risen and expressed concerns about the possible effects on the health of the population drinking the water. Tickley reported an increase in the incidence of dwarfism in the Vaal Triangle. The underlying cause has not been identified. Dwarfism, that means that people are suddenly getting shorter in the Vaal because of these. Yeah. Right. So, can you see? These are quite nice sentences. What did we learn just now about paragraphs? Is this a paragraph? No. Even if I'm going back and I'm just going to link all these sentences together, this is kind of 5 sentences copied from 5 different sources and just smack bang into your assignment. Refrain from that. You have to go and revisit this and interpret this, and that is what synthesis means. So on my next 2 slides, I'm going to show you how to write this well. Rice and Cooper measured the levels of lead and mercury in the Vaal River water and showed that the levels of the metals exceed the minimum acceptable levels. So they state here the problem. That's what I'm going to also show you in this. They experience I think it must be expressed. They express concerns about the acceptability of water for human consumption. Can you see there's no reference in that particular sentence because it still belongs with Rice and Cooper because they experience concerns. In contrast, can you see we use our linking device? Durham showed that the Vaal River was relatively pure and fit for human consumption. Durham demonstrated that there were no harmful metals or microbes in the water. Can you see this is what happened? So the introductory or the main sentence, can you say, we come in with a bang and say, wow, here is metals in this water which is not supposed to be there. And then we show exactly what happened. The reason for the discrepancy in these two studies, so you need to read it, is unclear, but could be due to the fact that Rice and Cooper took their water samples approximately 2 kilometers downstream from an electroplating factory. Just check out the sentence. Can you see it's running nearly 2.5 lines, and it starts getting difficult to understand the sentence? But still, in order to explain it, they go back and they make an argument to say the reason for the discrepancy in the two studies is unclear, but it could be due to the fact that Rice and Cooper took their water samples 2 kilometers downstream from a particular factory. Durham, and we can say Durham on the other hand, took water samples 4 kilometers downstream. So here is an intellectual contribution of the student because you discover and explain the differences between the two studies. And you create now from two sources new information. Okay, so you put it in a new way. Let us read on. The findings of these authors, nevertheless, now I want to say these authors now, it's like this. Now, which one am I talking now? No, these are all the authors previously. The findings of these authors nevertheless express concerns, and due consideration was given to using a water purification method derived by Weston. The method proved to be very effective, but later showed, just in brackets, Paul showed it, to be an economic disadvantage as it would make the water too expensive. Can you see here they give a possible solution to the problem. Despite the cost, concerns were expressed on the health of individuals consuming the water. On such concern is the findings by Tickley, who reported an increase in the incidence of dwarfism in the Vaal Triangle. Whether metals in the water are responsible for dwarfism remains to be established. So it opened up a question. It can, however, be speculated that elevated levels of mercury lead to dwarfism. Such a link has previously suggested by Dale, who show that blah, blah, blah. So can you see, by writing it like this, this is just a lot of facts that is thrown together. When you put it into this paragraph, you start making sense of it. So to summarize is just to give what is written by previous people, even if it is in your own words. But you have to combine this into a logical argument. Can you see this person have quite an argument at the end of the day? And they not necessarily start in the order that it was given previously of years. Here they start with Cooper in 61 and they go to Durham in 62. Look what happened here. Durham was here first and then Cooper there. So they just throw the two sources around and come up with a nice paragraph. So I hope you get it. It's difficult to get writing like this, right? So it will take practice, but that is what we are here for, to assist you in practicing this. But if you understand where you are going with when you are writing and reading, and that is also why I want you to print out your articles. For next time that you are coming to class, please bring your articles to the class so that I can show you how do we work with these articles, how do we read an article and come up with this kind of information and put this into arguments. Because sometimes we have the 10 articles, we copy from this one, we copy from that one, but the total all over doesn't make sense. So we will practice that after our long weekend. Right, and that is that for today. I do hope that you have learned something today, and it's a lot for a graveyard session. You were quite awake, I must say. So please try and apply this also into your other assignments. Even if it doesn't get it perfect the first time, that is why you have your lecturers and mentors